Picture this. It is May 17th, 2026. Somewhere in an office at Guinness World Records headquarters, a list is being finalized and published. A list that has existed for years but that most people outside of record-breaking circles have never fully paid attention to. It is not the list of the fastest runner, or the tallest building, or the longest fingernails. It is a different kind of list entirely. It is the icon list. And on this particular day in May, for the first time in the history of that list, a name from Asia appears on it. 7 names from Asia, actually, because the entry is not a solo artist, not a brand, not an institution. The entry is a group. The entry is BTS. And one of those 7 names is ParkJimin. Let that land for a second before we go any further. Because there is a difference between breaking a Guinness World Record and being named a Guinness World Records icon. And that difference is enormous. And it matters more for Jimin specifically than almost anyone else in the story. Breaking a record means you did something measurable. You ran the fastest. You sold the most. You hit #1 first. These are extraordinary achievements, and BTS has dozens of them. The first K-pop album to reach #1 on the Billboard 200 in 2018 with Love Yourself. Tear, the first K-pop track to cross 1 billion streams on Spotify in 2021 with Dynamite, the most streamed music group in all of Spotify history. Those are records. They are verified, documented, indisputable measurements of achievement. But being named an icon is something else entirely. Guinness World Records describes its icons as the pioneers, the lifelong obsessives, the dedicated and the dreamers who have come to define what it means to earn a place in Guinness World Records history. Read that again. Not the people who broke the most records. The people who came to define what it means to earn a place in history at all. That is a fundamentally different category of recognition. That is an institution looking at you and saying, your existence reshaped the field. Your career is not a data point. It is a reference point. You are the line that other things get measured against. And on May 17th, 2026, Guinness said that about BTS. About all 7 of them. About RM, Jin, Suga, J-Hope, Jimin, V and Jungkook. The group from Seoul that debuted in 2013 on a mid-sized label with no international distribution strategy and no roadmap for what they were about to do to the global music industry. To fully appreciate what Guinness is actually saying when they use the word icon, you have to understand how that program differs from the rest of what Guinness does. The Guinness World Records database contains over 50,000 records at any given time. There are records for everything imaginable: athletic performances, human biology, food, technology, architecture, animals, and thousands of categories of entertainment achievement. The vast majority of Guinness record holders are people who did one specific, measurable thing better than anyone else had ever done it before. That is genuinely impressive. But it is not what the icon designation is about. The icon designation is reserved for a far smaller, far more selective group. The figures who did not just break records but who changed the game so fundamentally that their presence in the record books represents an entire era of human culture. It is the difference between holding a record and being synonymous with one. And Guinness chose BTS for that distinction in 2026. First K-pop act. First Asian act. Only music group on the list. When institutions like Guinness make choices of this magnitude, they are not being generous. They are being precise. They are documenting a historical reality that the evidence demands be documented. To understand the full weight of what happened on May 17th, you need to know who else is on this list. The 2026 Guinness Icon roster includes Taylor Swift. It includes Beyoncé. It includes Drake. It includes Elton John. It includes Paul McCartney. It includes Dolly Parton. It includes Mr. Beast. And it includes Barbie. As in the cultural brand, the icon's so deeply embedded in global consciousness that it transcends any single product or film or generation. That is the company BTS is now officially keeping in Guinness World Records history. Not as record holders alongside these figures, as icons alongside them. There is a meaningful distinction between those two things, and the distinction matters enormously. Here is what else the list tells you when you look at it carefully. BTS is the only musical group on it. Taylor Swift is a solo artist. Beyoncé is a solo artist. Drake is a solo artist. Elton John is a solo artist. Paul McCartney, even though he was once half of the most famous songwriting partnership and a quarter of the most famous band in music history, is recognized individually. Dolly Parton is a solo artist. Mr. Beast is a solo creator. Barbie is a brand. BTS is the only act on the entire 2026 icon list that functions as a group, as a collective, as a unit of 7 people who have chosen year after year to build their legacy together rather than separately. And Guinness recognized that collective as an icon, not 7 individual icons. One icon, containing 7 people, that changed the world as a team. That distinction, the fact that BTS accomplished icon-level cultural impact while operating as a group, not despite it, is one of the most remarkable things about this recognition. It says that in an era where the music industry almost universally rewards the individual brand above all else, BTS built something so enduring and so influential by remaining fundamentally and architecturally collective that even Guinness could not separate the achievement from the unit. It is also worth pausing on the geographical significance of this moment. Every other name on the 2026 icon list comes from the Western world, from the American and British music industries, from Hollywood's entertainment ecosystem, from the YouTube creator economy born in California. BTS is the exception. BTS is the first and currently only act from Asia on an icon list that has been building for years. When Guinness wrote in its citation that BTS introduced K-pop to the world, it was not speaking casually. It was making a historical claim that before BTS, K-pop existed but had not yet crossed into genuinely global mainstream consciousness, and that BTS was the catalyst that changed that. The word introduced implies that what came after would not have existed in the same form without what BTS did first. That is the weight of an icon designation. And it is a weight that belongs equally to all 7 members, including ParkJimin. Now, why does this matter especially for Jimin? It matters because of everything that happened in the weeks and months surrounding May 17th that brought Jimin to this moment as arguably the most visible individual face of BTS's expanding artistic presence. It matters because of where Jimin has been, what he has built, and what he has proven, not just as a member of an icon-level group, but as a solo artist with a track record in the United States, and globally that would be remarkable even if BTS had never existed. To truly understand what Jimin's American commercial performance means, you have to understand the context in which it was built. He did not arrive at the American market with a pre-existing English-language fanbase, a mainstream radio promotion budget, or a label strategy specifically designed to manufacture Western chart success. His debut, solo album Face was released in March 2023 at a time when BTS had announced an indefinite hiatus, when the group's future as a performing unit was genuinely uncertain, and when each member was stepping into the solo spotlight for the first time without the collective to fall back on. The industry watched carefully. It wanted to know whether BTS members could hold their audiences individually, or whether the phenomenon was a group-level one that would fragment once the group itself was not the primary vehicle. Jimin answered that question within the first week of Face's release. The album sold over 1 million copies in South Korea in a single day, the first time any solo Korean artist had achieved that on the Hanteo chart. Like Crazy debuted at #1 on the Billboard Hot 100, making Jimin the first solo Korean artist in history to reach that position. The American music market does not hand that number to anyone out of goodwill or fan enthusiasm. The chart is a calculation. He earned it. And in the 2 years between that debut and the return of BTS in 2026, he continued building. Muse arrived in July 2024 with Who, which topped iTunes in 112 countries and has now accumulated 2.4 billion Spotify streams, making it the first solo song by any Asian artist without a featured guest to cross that threshold. 2 solo albums, 2 years, 2 entirely different sonic directions, Face operating in pop, R&B, and hip-hop, Muse reaching towards something more atmospheric and emotionally expansive, and both succeeded commercially across every major market the industry uses as a benchmark. That is not a trend. That is an artist who has figured out who he is across multiple registers, and who has the audience to prove that different versions of his artistry can coexist and thrive simultaneously. Let's go to the certified numbers, because they deserve to be stated plainly and fully. In the United States, Jimin's track Who has sold 5 million units, qualifying for multi-platinum status, and making him the fastest K-pop soloist ever to earn an RIA Platinum for a solo release. Like Crazy has sold 2 million US units, also multi-platinum. Together, those two songs account for 7 million certified US units for a Korean artist singing primarily in Korean. Angel PT1, the Fast X soundtrack track recorded alongside Kodak Black and Nelly Choppa, JVKE, and JiminLaugh, has just crossed 500,000 units and received RIAA Gold certification in May 2026, 3 years after its original release. That is catalog durability, not viral momentum, and the American industry treats those two things very differently. Both solo albums, Face and Muse, have each crossed 500,000 US units for RIAA Gold at the album level. Individual tracks including Set Me Free PT2, Filter, Serendipity, and Lie have all hit gold eligibility thresholds in the US. In Canada, back-to-back CRIA Platinum certifications, like Crazy and Who, making him the only K-pop solo artist to achieve consecutive Canadian Platinum certifications in the current decade. In the UK, BR Right certified silver for Like Crazy after crossing 200,000 units. In Japan, the first RIAJ Platinum certification ever awarded to a solo Korean artist for a foreign language album. These are not numbers from one breakout moment. They are built across 3 years, across 2 albums, across a catalog that was already substantial before BTS returned. When the RIAA certifies your work, they are not impressed by enthusiasm. They are counting units. And the count for Jimin, as of May 2026, is one that the industry cannot pretend not to see. Now layer the Guinness icon announcement on top of all of this. Because here is the thing about being named an icon when you are a member of a group. The designation belongs to everyone equally, but the context surrounds individuals differently. The Guinness citation belongs to all 7 members in equal measure. But each member also brings to that shared honor their own individual arc, their own solo body of work, their own expanding footprint in the industry beyond the BTS framework, that it matters because of everything that happened in the weeks and months surrounding May 17th that brought Jimin to this moment as arguably the most visible individual face of BTS's expanding artistic presence. It matters because of where Jimin has been, what he has built, and what he has proven, not just as a member of an icon-level group, but as a solo artist with a track record in the United States, and globally that would be remarkable even if BTS had never existed. To truly understand what Jimin's American commercial performance means, you have to understand the context in which it was built. He did not arrive at the American market with a pre-existing English-language fanbase, a mainstream radio promotion budget, or a label strategy specifically designed to manufacture Western chart success. His debut, solo album Face was released in March 2023 at a time when BTS had announced an indefinite hiatus, when the group's future as a performing unit was genuinely uncertain, and when each member was stepping into the solo spotlight for the first time without the collective to fall back on. The industry watched carefully. It wanted to know whether BTS members could hold their audiences individually, or whether the phenomenon was a group-level one that would fragment once the group itself was not the primary vehicle. Jimin answered that question within the first week of Face's release. The album sold over 1 million copies in South Korea in a single day, the first time any solo Korean artist had achieved that on the Hanteo chart. Like Crazy debuted at number 1 on the Billboard Hot 100, making Jimin the first solo Korean artist in history to reach that position. The American music market does not hand that number to anyone out of goodwill or fan enthusiasm. The chart is a calculation. He earned it. And in the 2 years between that debut and the return of BTS in 2026, he continued building. Muse arrived in July 2024 with Who, which topped iTunes in 112 countries and has now accumulated 2.4 billion Spotify streams, making it the first solo song by any Asian artist without a featured guest to cross that threshold. 2 solo albums, 2 years, 2 entirely different sonic directions, Face operating in pop, R&B, and hip-hop, Muse reaching towards something more atmospheric and emotionally expansive, and both succeeded commercially across every major market the industry uses as a benchmark. That is not a trend. That is an artist who has figured out who he is across multiple registers, and who has the audience to prove that different versions of his artistry can coexist and thrive simultaneously. Let's go to the certified numbers, because they deserve to be stated plainly and fully. In the United States, Jimin's track Who has sold 5 million units, qualifying for multi-platinum status and making him the fastest K-pop soloist ever to earn an RIAA Platinum for a solo release. Like Crazy has sold 2 million US units, also multi-platinum. Together, those two songs account for 7 million certified US units for a Korean artist singing primarily in Korean. Angel PT1, the Fast X soundtrack track recorded alongside Kodak Black and Nelly Choppa, JVKE, and Muni Long, has just crossed 500,000 units and received RIAA Gold certification in May 2026, 3 years after its original release. That is catalog durability, not viral momentum, and the American industry treats those two things very differently. Both solo albums Face and Muse have each crossed 500,000 US units for RIAA Gold at the album level. Individual tracks including Set Me Free PT2, Filter, Serendipity, and Lie have all hit gold eligibility thresholds in the US. In Canada, back-to-back CRIA Platinum certifications, like Crazy and Who, making him the only K-pop solo artist to achieve consecutive Canadian Platinum certifications in the current decade. In the UK, BR Right certified silver for Like Crazy after crossing 200,000 units. In Japan, the first RIAJ Platinum certification ever awarded to a solo Korean artist for a foreign language album. These are not numbers from one breakout moment. They are built across 3 years, across 2 albums, across a catalog that was already substantial before BTS returned. When the RIAA certifies your work, they are not impressed by enthusiasm. They are counting units. And the count for Jimin, as of May 2026, is one that the industry cannot pretend not to see. Now layer the Guinness icon announcement on top of all of this. Because here is the thing about being named an icon when you are a member of a group. The designation belongs to everyone equally, but the context surrounds individuals differently. The Guinness citation belongs to all 7 members in equal measure. But each member also brings to that shared honor their own individual arc, their own solo body of work, their own expanding footprint in the industry beyond the BTS framework. And in May 2026, the member whose individual arc is most visibly and measurably in motion is Jimin. He is mid-Arirang World Tour, performing to sold-out stadiums across North America. Bay Area music critics, Todd Inoue of the San Francisco Chronicle and writers at Riff Magazine, are calling out his vocal performances by name in mainstream publications, identifying specific moments in Like Animals and They Don't Know About Us as highlights of evenings headlined by one of the most accomplished live acts on Earth. His streaming numbers are crossing milestones that no Asian solo artist without a featured guest has previously crossed. He is number 1 in brand reputation rankings for individual boy group members, with sentiment analysis flagging words like perfect, enthusiastic, and breakthrough. And now his group is a Guinness icon. This convergence is not accidental. It is the result of 13 years of cumulative work built across every performance, every recording session, every world tour, every solo release, every certification milestone, every moment where Jimin chose to be excellent inside a framework that did not always make it easy to see exactly how excellent he was being. There is one more dimension to the Guinness icon announcement that deserves careful attention, one that goes beyond Jimin personally and speaks to what this recognition means for the trajectory of music history going forward. Before BTS, the consensus in the Western music industry was that K-pop was a regional phenomenon with a dedicated but ultimately niche global following. Individual crossover moments existed, PSY's Gangnam Style in 2012 being the most dramatic, but they were treated as exceptions rather than evidence of a structural shift. BTS did not just challenge that consensus, they dismantled it systematically and irrevocably over the course of nearly a decade. They showed that an audience built on genuine emotional connection rather than radio play could sustain a group at the peak of the global music industry for years. They showed that language was not a barrier but a feature, that fans around the world were willing to engage with music across cultural distance in ways the industry had assumed were impossible at scale. They showed that authenticity and direct artist-to-fan communication could build a commercial foundation more durable than any marketing strategy a major label could design. And now Guinness has formally recognized that what BTS did was not just commercially successful, but historically pivotal. For Jimin specifically, who has spent his entire solo career making music in Korean and about Korean emotional frameworks, that recognition is personal in a way that goes beyond certifications or chart positions. It is confirmation that the choice to remain fully himself, fully Korean, Fully Jimin, not diluted for Western palatability, was not a limitation. It was a strength, and Guinness, on May 17, 2026, wrote that down for the record. There is a particular kind of pressure that comes with being the main dancer and one of the most recognized faces of a group that has operated at the absolute peak of global popular music for over a decade. You are always performing within a framework larger than yourself. Your excellence serves the collective excellence. Your records become the group's records. Your milestones are celebrated first as team milestones. This is not a complaint. It is the nature of the collaborative architecture that made BTS what it is. But it does mean that the individual inside the team can sometimes be absorbed into the team's identity in ways that make it harder for the outside world to see where the group ends and the person begins. What the accumulation of evidence in May 2026 makes undeniable is this: ParkJimin exists fully and powerfully on both sides of that line. As a member of BTS, he is a Guinness icon, one of 8 figures or entities that Guinness has identified as having defined their field in 2026, alongside the most legendary names in Western music and culture. As a solo artist, he is a multi-platinum certified performer in the world's largest music market, with 2 solo albums that went gold in the US, with individual tracks crossing 5 million American units, with a catalog that continues generating certifications years after original release. Both of those things are true simultaneously. Both belong to the same person. And the Guinness icon designation is the formal acknowledgement that the foundation on which Jimin built his individual career is not just commercially successful, but historically significant. When Guinness places you in a category with Paul McCartney and Beyoncé, and calls you a pioneer, they are talking about the world you helped create. The world in which K-pop is a legitimate force in global music, in which an artist from Busan can sell 5 million units in America, singing primarily in Korean, in which a group of 7 Korean men can be named icons by the oldest and most authoritative record-keeping institution on Earth. That world exists because BTS built it. Jimin was there for every single brick. On May 17, 2026, Guinness said, "You are not just record breakers. You are icons. You are the kind of artists who define what achievement means." And one of those 7 members, the one from Busan, the main dancer who turned out also to be a multi-platinum solo artist, the one whose voice registered as a highlight to critics who came with no particular reason to be impressed, was ParkJimin. That is not only a group achievement, that is his achievement too. And in May 2026, with everything converging simultaneously, the certifications, the 2.4 billion streams, the world tour, the critical recognition, the sold-out stadiums across 3 continents, it is becoming increasingly impossible to talk about what BTS is without talking specifically, individually, and with the full weight of the evidence about what Jimin is. The icon designation made it official. The data made it undeniable. ParkJimin is exactly where 13 years of extraordinary work said he would end up.